This video may contain offensive language or be frightening to some viewers. Viewer discretion is recommended. I see you. Vailly Evans was a young 15-year-old lady, a responsible, studious, and lovely girl who was kind to everyone. A girl who wanted to live a long and fulfilling life, who had many dreams to accomplish. She was very beautiful. She had long wavy dark hair that flowed all over her back. Her skin was pure white porcelain, but the most striking thing about her was her eyes. She had heterochromia, and her eyes were of different colours. Her right one was a dark brown, almost black, and the left one was of bright light blue colour, and when the sun shined on her face, it looked like a diamond. Anyone who met her for the first time was shocked by her beautiful eyes. Like every day, Vailly awoke in the morning, eager to begin a new day. She put on her school uniform, she ate her jam toast with a big glass of milk, and went to high school. Her friends were there, at the door, waiting for her. She was excited to see them, and greeted them very energetically. The most boring subjects were the first hours of the day, but despite this, she always paid attention. She used to help her classmates and friends if they ever had any difficulties, and she always cheered them up when they felt upset or down. She was such a lovely girl. There's no doubt about that. Break time had arrived, and she met with her friends. Vailly had spent a few days focusing on a new boy who had arrived at the high school 1 or 2 weeks ago. He was always sitting on a bench. She thought that maybe he was kind of shy, and it was hard for him to make new friends. So she decided to get closer to him and meet him.
I'll be right back. I'm gonna go talk to that boy,
she said to her friends. That boy? He's new and kinda weird. I wouldn't talk to him, her friends said.
Come on, don't be silly. I'm sure he's a great guy.
Vailly walked further away from her friends and closer to the bench where the boy was sitting, looking at the floor.
Hi there,
said Vailly with her sweet voice. The boy startled, raising his head to look at her. And for a few seconds, he stood quiet and shy until he could reply to her greeting. Hi.
Sorry for saying hello in such a surprising way. It's just that I saw that you're new here, and I wanted to introduce myself. My name is Vailly. What's yours?
My name is David.
Nice to meet you, David.
She offered her hand so he could shake it as a sign of friendship. She held his hand slowly and softly. Nice to meet you too, Vailly.
It must be hard to arrive at a new school not knowing anyone, but I'm sure you'll soon get used to it here, and you'll make a lot of new friends.
Yes. The bell rang, and the students began going to their respective classrooms.
Well, the break is over. It's been a pleasure to meet you, David. We'll talk more another day, okay? If you need something, don't hesitate to ask me. I'm sure we'll be good friends.
As she went to rejoin her friends to go to her classroom, he shook her hand, saying goodbye to her, and he stared after her as she left. As she went to rejoin her friends to go to her classroom, he reached out and shook her hand, saying goodbye. As she walked away, He stared after her. Since that day, Vailly always went to say hello to David during break time to talk to him. He wasn't so talkative. Almost always Vailly was the only one talking, and he was just staring at her, drowning in her eyes. She was his only friend. He didn't seem to relate to any other student. After a hard day, Vailly went to sleep early because she was tired from studying a whole day, and she slept like a log. She normally slept deeply and never overslept, but that night she woke up with a strange and disturbing feeling, as if someone was looking at her. She looked at the clock, and it was 3:30 a.m. She got up and went to the window to open it and look through it onto the balcony, which was over the garden. She examined the whole garden, but saw nothing strange or disturbing.
It's just a dream,
she thought. She closed the curtains and went back to bed, falling asleep again. The next day, at break, Vailly went out again to say hello to David, as she always did. But he wasn't there. He seemed to have missed his classes.
What could have happened to him?
Wondered Vailly. When she was going home, she received a call from David. Vailly, I'm sorry, I didn't go today. I didn't feel very well. His voice sounded tired.
What's wrong?
She wondered, worried. Nothing. It's just that I'm a bit sick. Could you come to see me? That would really make me happy.
Of course I can. When do you want me to come?
Could you come this evening?
I don't usually go out when it's dark, but anything for a friend. So yeah.
Okay then. At 9 o'clock, she dressed in one of her favourite outfits. She wore a stripy grey jersey, a blue skirt with white shoes, and long white socks. She took a bag full of food that she had prepared earlier, thinking that it might cheer him up. Then she left for David's house. She had to take a bus because his house was a bit further from where she lived. She finally arrived and knocked on the door. She waited a bit until he opened it. He looked so tired and pale. He had huge bags under his eyes.
Oh, you poor thing. You look like you haven't slept at all.
No, I haven't. I'm very sick. He smiled weakly as she came in.
Aren't your parents home?
She asked as she looked around. They aren't. They're working right now. They both sat in the kitchen, and Vailly offered him the food she had brought. David thanked her, but he wasn't hungry. They began to talk, and as always, Vailly was the most talkative. David just sat there, staring into her eyes. Sometimes she wondered if he was really listening to what she said, or if he was just looking at her. Vailly looked at her watch and saw it was already 11 o'clock. So late. She had just been talking for such a long time.
Oh God, look at the time. It's so late. My parents are going to kill me. I better get going.
She got up quickly And suddenly, David grabbed her arm, abruptly. "No, I don't want you to go."
But David, I can't stay here. It's so late. I'm sorry, I have to.
"I said you're staying here," he screamed aggressively, not letting her talk and scaring her.
Okay.
She said as her voice shook, sitting back down again, slowly, too scared to even scream. "I'm going to make you a coffee." He got up abruptly to go and prepare it. Vailly was terrified. She wanted to leave, but she was afraid that David would scream at her again. Her legs began to shake. She didn't know what to do. She looked around to find a way to escape. The coffee was ready. David put down both the cups onto the table. "Drink the coffee. I made it for you. It's delicious," he ordered politely. She nodded, and with shaky hands, she took the coffee and began drinking. She was praying in her mind that something or someone would save her. She wanted to be home with her parents, safe and far away from him. "What's wrong? Don't you want to speak anymore?" he said, looking into her eyes.
I don't know what to talk about.
Vailly was feeling more and more uncomfortable. "Well, you know I don't usually talk very much, but I want to tell you something." She stayed quiet, looking at him while she was shaking with fear. "Since that day you came to talk to me, and I saw your face, that smile, those eyes, your left eye, the light blue one, that's my favourite one. I can't stop thinking about it. I always want to look at you. The more you come to talk to me, the more I want to stare at you. And when you were missing, I couldn't be one single second without staring at your angelic face. I even went to your house, climbed to your balcony, and I was there, looking at you while you slept for several hours. But then you woke up and closed that damn curtain. I couldn't see you, and I needed to see you." Vailly had no words. She was terrified. She cried her eyes out and begged him to let her go, but suddenly she began to fall asleep. Then her head fell on the table, completely asleep. When she hadn't been looking, he had put a sleeping pill into her coffee. Some time passed, and eventually she began to regain consciousness and opened her eyes. At first, everything was blurry, and she felt the pressure of ropes that were tying her to a chair and a gag in her mouth so she couldn't talk. More time passed, and she could finally see more clearly, and the first thing she saw was David, sitting on a bed in front of her. They were in a room that looked like it must have been his bedroom. The thing that scared her the most was the shine of the knife he was holding. "As I was saying before you fell asleep, I'm in love with your face. I want to touch it till the end of time. You're staying with me forever, aren't you?" He came closer to her and caressed her cheek, while tears were dropping down her face and fell into David's hand. "Oh, come on, don't cry. You should be happy, like you always are. Don't you like the idea of being with me forever? I thought we were friends, You'll always be there for me when I need it. 'Cause you're who I need, Vailly. I want to be able to see you forever. Your smile. Your beautiful, bright and light blue eye. The girl, in an act of despair, began denying with her head, while she was crying and twisting, trying to break free from the ropes. I see you don't like the idea. Well then, if I can't have you and watch you forever, I'll have to eliminate you, he said with an awful psychotic smile stretched across his face. He began stabbing the beautiful left eye of the young lady he loved so much, and she just twisted in pain between her own groans as the gag stifled her screams. The blood in her left eye, which had been torn, was dripping down her porcelain cheek, and she finally stopped writhing and grew still. Not even her heart was beating anymore. David threw the eye that had been ripped out of its socket onto the floor and stepped on it. He took the gag from her mouth, untied the girl's corpse, and left it to lean against the wall of the bedroom. I'm going to sleep, Vailly. Good night. I love you. He kissed the forehead of the dead body, turned the light out, and went to sleep, with no remorse at all about what he did to an innocent young lady. David woke up at 3:30 a.m. He thought he heard a whisper. He looked around the dark room and thought it must have been his imagination, and tried to return to sleep. But again he heard a whisper. He looked around for a second time, and then he saw something right where he had left Vailly's corpse. He turned on the light and was greeted by a horrifying sight. What was once a beautiful young lady was now something completely different. The black empty basin of the eye that had been pulled out by him now housed a little blue light that was shining within it. It was the same colour as her eye used to be, and blood was dripping from the socket. Her mouth, which was once quiet, now began stretching slowly into a grotesque smile. It became bigger and bigger from ear to ear, her torn lips parting to reveal the shape of sharp canines beneath. David just stared, horrified, and her, with her big, grotesque smile, spoke in a soft voice that left him breathless.
I see you.
Alexa! Alexa! Wake up! Alexa! I could hear my father faintly calling out to me. I felt so cold, as if I had been dead. I was frightened and embraced myself so hard that I popped the balloon without realizing it.